Welcome, world. Once again, it's 6 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States of America, which means it's time for Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Mr. Etheridge, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. To tell you what, the weekend is not long enough.
The weekend is not long enough. That's true. We have Memorial Day coming up, so that'll be like a nice extended weekend coming up.
I can't wait.
Can't wait?
No way.
No way.
Yeah.
You got any special plans for Memorial Day?
It's DC, so it's day party season.
Day parties,
so,
barbecues.
A couple of day parties will probably see me.
Absolutely. Well, of course, you're listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money, where we trade in bullet point personal finance advice for casual, pop culturally relevant conversations about money. So real quick, I don't know if you heard about this on social media or otherwise. The male romper. Are you with it or are you not with it?
I'm going to stop you and ask you to guess which side you think I'm on.
I'm 100% sure you fall on the non-romper.
I am 100% anti on the romp hem.
Yeah.
Dude, it is a travesty.
It's an absurd idea, and if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, there's been a bit of social media buzz about this new supposed trend. I don't believe it is a trend.
It's coming.
I think it's actually fake. This is actually the definition of fake news.
No, it's coming.
This is not a real thing.
You will be in New York this summer and see some guys walking around in rompers and Timbs. Or here in DC with foam posits matching the romper.
Listen,
I'm telling you, it's coming.
If I see a foam posit and romper combo, I'm gonna I'm gonna drop all my stuff and just like walk out. I might be outside, but I'm gonna still walk out.
So I'm willing to bet money on this. Like, I'm not even a gambling man, but I'm willing to bet money on this. That at some point this summer,
right,
I'm gonna see some guy out here in DC with a romper and Nike boots on, just strutting like it's like the coolest thing ever.
Like, it's cool. We showed a couple pictures, but one of which was Cam Newton when he wore a semi romper thing to Coachella earlier this year. He actually kind of made it look kind of cool.
Whoa,
but Cam is also
he is.
He's also too.
There he is.
He's also too big to be dressed like that all the time, which he often is.
But so look at the NBA players that always come out in like their mom's sweaters and church hats, right? Like, there's 6'8" wearing long almost dresses. What are they called? Dusters?
Yeah, I don't know. Those
things that women wear to like almost sweep the ground. You got NBA players that are like taller than me, you put together, and they're walking around in things like that. So Cam Newton in this doesn't surprise me one drop.
That's hilarious.
I hope it dies a quick death, but I don't think so. I think it's here to stay.
I think it'll be quick. I think it'll be quick death, and if it's not, then we'll just be sitting here being the odd men out, you and I and a few others. Also, it's getting to be summertime because Memorial Day is like the official mark of summertime,
yes, Lord.
Which means it's wedding season.
That's true.
We haven't really done. We got to do a show on weddings one day. But
how much they cost?
They cost a lot of money. They're definitely expensive. Also, another interesting thing about weddings, when people try to do like non-traditional things, like or it's not even non-traditional.
Like not have an open bar.
Like not well. That's
non-traditional.
See, now you're being
offensive. You're
being mean and rude because open bar costs money.
True.
So, and that could be something that people are shaving.
I'm just saying, if you invite me to a wedding. So I actually, not too long ago, somebody told me that they take 2 gift cards to a wedding.
Okay.
One for open bar, one for not open bar. $50 or $200. And I'd like chuckled at first when he said it, and then I realized he was serious. And then when I really thought about it, I was like, he might be onto something.
That's really hilarious.
I hope I didn't start, anybody down that path that wasn't already headed that way. But when he said that, it hit me.
That's a hilarious thesis in terms of attending weddings and giving gifts. Something I also want to encourage, particularly fellas who are getting married and are considering what they want to do to stylize their thing, do whatever. Just don't do the whole sneakers and Jordans thing.
You're over that?
I mean, it's just like, at least now if you're 21 and you're getting married and you got on some sneakers, then I can understand. But if we're grown, I'm looking at it like, I know it's like supposed to be cool, but it's one of those decisions that you look back on as a 45-year-old and you be like, nah, shouldn't have did that.
So you didn't wear sneakers?
No. I wore a traditional cap toe dress shoe. So keep it classy, man. So you can look back on those photos and be impressed with yourself.
I agree with you that it's played. Like it's not even like
leave your Jordans at home. Nobody want to see those on wedding day. But anyway, We want to remind people what they're listening and watching because we go on tangents occasionally here on Manage Your Damn Money. But as we do every week, we want to jump straight into our headline. Headlines here on Manage Your Damn Money where we review a story that's money related. And the story we pulled for this week, the headline read, "Millennial employees are a lot more loyal than their job hopping stereotype would suggest."
Oh, snap.
Oh, snap. We keep coming through with the millennials are better than what the boomer generation wants to believe we are. But here we go. A May 10th story on CNBC, so this is real recent, explains a new survey by Qualtrics Accel Partners, which found almost 90% of millennials say they would choose to stay in a job for the next 10 years if they knew they'd get annual raises and upward career mobility. The Qualtrics Accel Partners surveyed almost 1,500 millennials about what they look for in an ideal workplace. One of the quotes was from one of the people quoted in the story was James Goodnow, and he said, "Many baby boomer executives think millennials are just cashing in on short-term gigs so they can scrape together enough money to go hiking on Mount Kilimanjaro or buy an unlimited annual skydiving pass."
See, that's just nonsense.
Well, he was actually speaking in support of millennials. He was saying like boomers think that millennials are just out buying lattes and stuff with their extra money that they get. But some answers to the survey question: what was the longest you would stay at your current job, even if you liked it? 39% said 6 or more years, which is pretty good. 68% said 3 years, and this is, I don't know, the percentages are weird here. And then it says 16% said 1 year or less. So it looks like the majority of people, however the percentages were broken down, were on the side of like 3 years or more. Mm-hmm. Which is like, I feel like that's a solid stay between 3 and 6 years. I mean,
3 years isn't saying a lot.
I'll put it to you like this.
It took you longer than that to graduate from college. Like 3 years is not. Okay. So 10 years to me is a solid amount of time to put in at a company and really like be there for a while. Okay. 5 years is kind of like, all right, that's about what you expect. Okay. But then 3 years is kind of like, just got here good enough to remember like how to get to both bathrooms and your password for your computer, and now you're leaving.
I would say this. I think that might be true, but I think what's also different is millennials, especially with the way that our economy is structured as we are adults and some people are becoming adults, it's structured a lot differently than what the economy was, how it was structured in the baby boomer era. Internet wasn't necessarily a thing, or when it was just in its infancy. It certainly didn't lend itself to kind of the ability to move about in terms of how you move doing work in this way or that way. So I think it's true, but what's also true is that the way that you have structure and you move up is not the same as when previous generations went through the workforce.
Fair enough. And to your point, it's a lot easier. The same way you can get on your cell phone and find a date via like 10 different apps, you can get on your cell phone and find a new job via apps. Yes. So that makes it a little tougher too on employers to keep their good people interested in
because it's easy to search, and
because it's very easy to find out that there's better out there. Absolutely. I didn't know that before when I was disconnected from the rest of the world, but now I know.
And I had to hire a headhunter, right, and go looking through the ads of the newspaper.
And you had to be kind of high up there and have a little bit of change in your pocket to hire a headhunter. Right. So now you can be your own headhunter. Absolutely. So that has changed the dynamic too. But the big glaring elephant in the room is the pension.
And that doesn't exist anymore.
The reason that so many people who pine for the good old days and talk about how you millennials just keep looking for the next best thing and blah, blah, blah. 99% of the reason our parents stayed at their jobs is because that job gave them a pension and paid for all kind of ridiculous employee benefits that they don't pay for anymore.
Can I tell you that both of my grandparents, both of which worked for some municipality, different ones, but some municipality in the state of California, are 87, I think, and they're either on now or on the way too soon. They've gone on a bunch of cruises, right? And I always kind of wondered how they got along, as grandparents do. And then I actually asked them one summer how they get about and get along, and they said, my grandma said, I said, "Oh, so you get a pension from such and such municipality.
Oh, you mean how to get along financially?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she said, no, it's not my pension. It's my retirement. I don't call it my pension. It's not a pension. It's my retirement. So my grandmother actually has been retired longer than she ever worked.
Wow.
She's 87. And my grandfather is similar. Like, he's approaching equal time in the workforce and retirement. And because both of their job situations back in the day offered them some kind of both compensation package for retirement and healthcare is included in that. So they're just like chilling.
It's amazing to me that no economists were around at this time to go, wait a minute, guys.
Clearly.
This model is flawed.
Clearly.
Like, even after the baby boomer generation boomed, right? And you saw all these people like between 1 and 20 years old.
Right.
You didn't say, wait a minute, the population has almost doubled. That's
Right.
going to be twice as many people that need access. Like, nobody who was in the position to say anything said anything.
Let's pay people past the point when they are producing. It was a really great benefit at the time, and clearly my grandparents are living the fruits of that labor now. Shout out to Reverly and the original Hardin with no middle name. But another quote from the story from Larry Yu said, the notion that millennials place a premium on their employer's mission is clearly an overgeneralization, said Larry. He's a marketing partner at Accel. People value career trajectory and compensation more. It shouldn't be a surprise. This generation is getting to the age where things like owning a home or starting a family is more top of mind. So now it seems like, at least in this quote, we're seeing the maturation, at least in this person's mind, of the perspective of what a millennial wants, which is wonderful, because it's like millennials, sometimes it feels like we're having to scrape for, being taken seriously in some ways.
Well, part of the challenge with these kind of stories, and I told you I'm at this point when, like, every time I see a heading that says millennials in it, I just, click next.
Right.
But part of the challenge is everybody considers us to be a monolith.
Right.
And that's not the case at all.
Right.
Like, you've probably got 10 different personality types within the whole millennial generation that spans, 18 or 20 years or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, so you want to put everybody in this box that everybody cares about social responsibility and everybody cares about flexible working times and everybody cares.
I just want to work from the coffee shop.
Right. I mean, which, is true. Some people do.
Right,
but then I saw an article the other day. It didn't have millennials in the title, so I accidentally read it. And it was talking about how, like, if millennials would stop buying avocados, they could buy houses.
Oh, my God.
Now, I've never in my life known anybody who bought $50,000 worth of avocados.
Even me.
So it takes 20% down to buy a house pretty much in this America, right?
Yes.
So 20% of the average home price of, let's call it $250,000. That's $50,000 worth of avocados that they're accusing me of buying. How long would it take you to consume 50 grand worth of avocados at today's avocado prices?
That's a lot of guacamole right there.
That's a lot, right? So that whole fallacy, it just, that kind of stuff is super annoying when people look at us and say, all you guys want to do is go to music concerts and eat avocados.
You know what I thought about? That's a lot like the baby boomers, at least in this instance. They're Mr. Wilson in Dennis the Menace.
Oh, man.
Get out the street. Get out the street, you millennial.
You know what's amazing? People who will watch this show who are born probably 5 to 8 years after you and I will have no idea who the heck Mr. Wilson is.
Oh, Mr. Wilson!
Like, that is amazing to me now that I think about it. Like, there's a whole, like, my younger cousin, he's 5 years younger than I am. He probably has no idea who the heck Mr. Wilson is.
None at all.
Man,
none at all.
Wow.
Anyway, you of course listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money. We're gonna take a really quick music break, but we didn't even tell people what we're talking about on this episode. We're talking about things you wish you knew as a kid about money. We got a lot of feedback on social media about this question. So always when you are seeing our stuff, feel free to comment because we will read your comments live on the show. But when we come back, we'll take a look at the topic, the conversation at hand. But of course, you're listening to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. We will be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Willie Beeman has done it again.
We are back here on Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Today's conversation at hand for this episode, things you wish you knew as a kid about money. Malcolm, you were really into money as a youngster.
Yeah.
So there's not much you didn't know, I'm sure.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but there's not much I wasn't interested in. Let's say it that way.
Okay, so yours was reverse. Malcolm knew a lot, and then there were some things he didn't know, but he knew a lot.
I was always asking questions.
Okay.
So I would ask, any and everybody who I thought had a reason to know what they were talking about.
Right.
Why they did something a certain way, or, what they... And plus, I've always been like, I don't know if obsessed is the word, but maybe like fascinated with money.
Right.
So my relationship with money is probably different than most,
Absolutely. I'm sure mine's is too. But real quick to get us start us off, though some of us are blessed to have had an introduction to personal finances as kids through school or money conscious parents or being obsessive compulsive like Malcolm, not everyone has the opportunity to learn about money early in life. Much of how we learn about money is through trial and error, screwing up, making the wrong decision, and correcting the behavior after seeing negative results. This being said, on this episode of NYDM, we're asking the question, what did you know about money? What do you wish you knew about money as a kid? So there's something that I have written here, so I'm reading it. Oh, I was on a bus once.
Okay.
And it was this guy talking to a friend that was with him. And he was like, telling this whole long story about how he was talking to his parents about money. And he basically said, well, he asked his parents, the grand question was, well, what do I do? What do I do to do better? And they were like, we don't know. Just do better.
Wow.
And it was just like, and he was like, his response was, wow, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Thanks for nothing.
That's the scary part about it.
Absolutely. And I think, it makes sense because in the States, at least, there's no real consideration given to financial education on really any level. So it's interesting to see some of the responses we got, knowing that there's no real conversation, certainly when we were coming up, on what and how to go about learning about money.
Well, so part of that, though, is for the folks, friends of ours, watchers of the show and listeners to the podcast, have to make sure then that it starts with you.
Right.
Because if you're not careful, you could then be the very next generation of folks who are saying, I don't know
what to do, Johnny.
So, if you're watching this show, I have to assume that you're at least remotely interested in learning how to manage your damn money and make good decisions. So then that has to continue to some degree, right?
Absolutely. Here's a question. How early, because we're talking about what people wish they would have known as kids, but to kind of, before we get into that, how early is too early to start talking and teaching your kids? Like, let's actually make it personal.
Right.
When little Malcolm and little Malcolma come out of the womb, when are you going to start implementing some kind of lessons about money?
I don't know when kids actually learn how to count.
Okay.
But whatever that age is, that's the answer. So, like, I'll give you an example. My niece right now just turned 3.
Uh-huh.
She's probably got like another 6 months before school starts.
Okay.
So if that gives you any idea,
That's about when it's happening for the Malcolm household.
Right.
I've thought about some kind of like game or gamification or like do something in the house that's
you got to make it
to,
interesting.
Like, yeah, you got to make it entertaining of some kind. I don't know at what age it should start. But let me ask you this. Some people say that, and I've heard this before from people who are close to me, who shall remain nameless. What about people who say children shouldn't be burdened with the stress of finances as kids?
That is malarkey.
Why is it malarkey?
So I wasn't, for the most part, I wasn't kept in the dark in my household, my sister nor myself.
Okay.
I have an older sister. Neither one of us was ever really kept in the dark as far as what our household finances looked like.
Oh, wow.
And the realities of what, they were.
Okay.
So as far back as I can remember, money was never really a taboo conversation in my household.
Okay.
Especially when talking to my mom. So for that reason, I am a person who's very comfortable and confident when talking to people about money.
Okay.
So much so that people pay me to talk to them about their, like, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
and I'm not saying necessarily that then breeds the kind of personality that makes somebody want to go into that profession.
Sure.
But I'm saying the more comfortable someone is with it as early as possible, the more likely they are to take control of it and be, you know, on the ball when
Absolutely.
it's time for them to know.
Absolutely.
So I'll give you an example. Something as simple as I remember my first like real job where I actually had a paycheck.
Okay.
My dad actually helped me learn how to fill out my tax return form.
Okay.
So we actually sat down at the table in the living room and went through like, you know, here's what you made. Here's all the deductions that were made from your paycheck. Here's who FICA and FUTA and all these other people I'll never meet, but they take my money every month.
Right.
Here is where all that money goes.
Right.
And then when it's all said and done, here's how much is left for you.
Right.
I think that's a very valuable lesson to learn as early as possible because taxes aren't something you really think about until it's already upon you.
The one of the most valuable classes that I still remember, and it was the first time I actually filed my taxes as like an 18-year-old, I guess, was Mr. Maloof's economics class at John Muir High School. I learned how to balance a checkbook.
Okay.
Like an actual physical paper checkbook.
I don't know what good that's going to do.
It's not much good now that there's an online platform, but at the time, Mr. Maloof is like around. Mr. Maloof is that old teacher who's been there forever and no one knows how old he is.
Right.
But he looks the same.
He probably is still there.
He is still there because
Yeah,
when I went back a couple years ago, he looked exactly the same as when I was there. But anyway, Mr. Maloof's economics class was like learn to balance a checkbook, learn how to do my taxes on paper. It was a lot from that class that I remember, and that actually had functional use after the fact.
Right.
So that was like I was 18. I was like a senior then.
And you'll probably never do it manually ever again. But just to know what all is going on.
Right.
Once you hire an accountant and you're paying somebody to handle this stuff for you, at least you'll be able to know enough to know you're not getting taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
That's important enough on its own.
Absolutely. So we're gonna actually I'll read a couple of things that people mentioned on social media. Top things people wish they had known about money as kids, and this is from a combination of Instagram and also Facebook. So thanks to all those who left comments about what they think on this particular topic. Cami Robe says, "Wish I knew the power of saving, the pit that credit cards can be, and the power of investing." That's a good one. LAPNK16. I don't know how you pronounce that. I wish I had learned about the stock market and investment vehicles, which is good. And then Confectious86 says, I took an interpersonal relationship class early on in education. Now looking back, she wished it was explained or taught in a way that she could apply growing up. It was taught but not reinforced. She said she moved away from direct contact, that old ways of communication doesn't work, combating new age communication. And then Give Me More Monica says, I wish I had learned about what goes into a credit score and how that hurts or helps you later in life. She says later being now. Interest and the importance of saving or having a comfortable nest egg just to have it versus saving for a big purchase or a future quote unquote big ticket item. She's glad she learned, not that you asked, about credit cards and the financial burden that they can be if misused. Hence, she doesn't have any credit card debt. Her parents and grandparents never had credit cards when she was growing up. So actually that helped her because she knew that she didn't need a credit card until after college, and then she was already responsible.
How did all that fit in 140 characters?
This was on Instagram, so
okay.
it doesn't have to be 140 characters on Instagram, Malcolm, because I know you don't know that on your own. And then Kelly says from Facebook, I feel like my parents did a good job teaching me to be financially responsible growing up, but I wish they'd have stressed or required me to save all my birthday money,
Okay.
etc. she received from family, and not treat it as extra money that she could spend on whatever she wanted. It was a little here and there, but over several years and also earning interest could have been a lot more. So she wished she would have put some of that birthday money to the side. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I remember that whole birthday money thing,
Uh-huh.
and I as we're talking about this, I'm thinking like things that I intend to do, like with my own kids, whenever they show up here. I I think the whole birthday money thing is important. So like where you have, your kids will say, hey, I want to go. We're in the grocery store and they say, hey, I want this box of cereal. Right, box of cereal costs $3-4, and you say to them, well, you have to buy it with your own money because you have plenty of cereal at home. So if this is so important to you, you have to buy it. Right. So the kid says, all right, well, I have $100 in my bank account, so I'm okay with that. Right. All right, well, this is 4% of the money that you have in your bank account. So like, let's make sure that we understand how much is coming out. But then on the flip side, now I want a video game. All right, video game is like $75. So then you break it down again. All right, well, that's 3/4
This is all
of all the money you have in your bank account. Right. That's 5 birthdays it took you to get this money. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to spend 5 birthdays worth of money on this video game? Then it becomes, I think, a little bit more real. And especially when they get their own jobs and start making, their little coins on the side, that breakdown becomes a lot more real, where it's like, oh, shoot, I just spent my whole summer working for this $3,000. And now I'm about to spend 2/3 of it on X, something. Right. Do I really want this thing that badly anymore? Like I was a kid who never had Jordan sneakers. Like parents never bought them. Right. So by the time I was old enough to get my own job in high school and actually save up my own money to buy whatever I really wanted. I never actually purchased a pair of Jordans because I was like, I'm not about to spend $200 after it took me, however many hours of working at the video store to pay for some Jordans when I could, just buy some regular old Nikes and call it a day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Real quick, I don't know if this is a lesson or not, but my pop used to give me money for grades. Okay. So like an A was like, for instance, I don't remember what the breakdown was, but like an A was 50, a B was like 30, and then on the way down, I'm sure I didn't get paid for D's or F's or anything like that. I barely
50 for an A covers the whole thing.
I think that's what it was. Maybe it was like 20 per A. I don't remember what it was.
I think my grandparents gave me like $10 per A.
It's something you didn't have before. One of the last comments we got from Sumpty Hump. I wish I would have been more open and or exposed to the actual salaries that certain degree paths afford as to how they translate in the real world. Oh, the pain I could have spared myself. so Sumpty Hump didn't quite know what his career path was or what it was going to actually pay on the other end of college. And I think that's a real interesting question that we'll have to save for another show, about whether or not people even realize what they'll get paid on the other end of going into certain careers.
I think that's a very important piece to it, especially when it comes to the whole student loan thing. Right. Like if you are taking out student loans to go to medical school or law school or, to get a MBA in something, there's a direct correlation between I'm going to school for 3 or 4 years. Right. I'm going to study this thing that then is going to pay me 3 times the amount of money I'd be able to make if I didn't do it. Right. And that'll be able to pay off my student loans in 10 years or whatever. Right. And be so much better off in life if I hadn't done it. Right. But then if I go to get a master's degree in something that pays half or pays $5,000 more than what it pays for having a bachelor's degree, well, now that math doesn't add up. And now I need to really be thinking about, is it worth taking out a loan at 9% interest or whatever to go make an extra $5,000?
We have to do a whole show on this topic for a lot of different reasons. We'll come back to that at some point. But of course, you're listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Today's conversation at hand, what do you wish you knew about money as a kid that you didn't know, that you do know now, or that you're getting introduced to now? We're going to come back to that and kind of focus and pivot a little bit to if you have kids now. Neither of us have kids of our own yet, but we're going to kind of speak to a little bit about what people can do aside from having crazy imposed savings rules in your household like we would. But we're going to take a really quick music break, hear another music piece from our in-house music producer, Beats by Beeman. You can find his music on Instagram at Beats by Beeman. Just spell it how it sounds. We will be right back. Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Welcome back to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. We want to remind you listening that you can always catch us on iTunes or on SoundCloud. Just search Manage Your Damn Money on either platform, specifically on iTunes, the podcast platform. I think they're calling it Apple Podcast now. You can also always find us on social media. My handle is at MYDM1.
At Malcolm on Money.
Absolutely. And you can always find us at manageyourdamnmoney.com. Today's conversation at hand. What do you wish you knew as a kid about money that you do know now? What we do know is this, Malcolm. Education about money in America is very sparse.
Very.
Personal finance education in America is not institutional. We learn math, English, and history, but money is left to parents or specific teachers who have the desire to include it in their curriculum. I had a teacher in the 6th grade, Mrs. Jones, who selected myself and 3 other students, Hector, Raji, and Cecilio.
Okay.
And we had to run.
Pretty good memory.
Yes. Well, they were friends of mine. And we had to do like a business, and we sold ice cream at lunch. So our lunch recess was literally just selling ice cream, and then it paid for like a banquet at the end of the year for the entire class.
Okay.
So that was an interesting. So that was an instance where Mrs. Jones, Miss Rita Jones, took the time to actually invest in us on how to do a business thing, which also obviously has some components of financial management.
And she basically taught you guys about like a labor union, because that's essentially what you.
That was
somehow you became head of the student labor union.
That was in the 6th grade. 6th grade, yeah. So that was pretty early. But here's a story that we pulled for this story: the 5 most important money lessons to teach your kids. I had to really go back on this one. This is a story from October 2013 from Forbes.
I'm sorry. Good information is good information.
Good, right. But shows how little information is out there about kids and money, at least on Google, I'll say. This is a Forbes piece by Laura Shin, which explored the top things parents should teach even their very young children about when it comes to money. Beth Kobliner, who was quoted in the piece, is a New York Times bestseller of Get a Financial Life, said children as young as 3 years old can grasp financial concepts like saving and spending. So she started out with age 3, age 3 through 5, and the lesson was you may have to wait to buy something you want. Like you mentioned, you don't necessarily want to buy the cereal if it's going to take too much of your portion of money.
Delayed gratification.
Well, she said, then she went on to say, don't buy kids things just because you're in the store. Teach, as Malcolm just said, delayed gratification, which is a really big one. And then also she mentioned creating money jars. So like saving, spending, and sharing jars that money for chores or accomplishments go in. So like if you vacuum your room, then you get like a certain amount of tokens or money if you want to do real money. And then also setting goals. Having kids as young as 3 to 5 set reasonable goals to make purchases with jar money.
Yeah. I think that is absolutely fair.
Okay.
So you do X amount of chores and you get X amount of dollars for doing your chores around the house.
Right.
That essentially is your paycheck. And so you're learning very quickly what the value is your time for that dollar. So then it helps you learn very quickly, what that kind of exchange rate is as you get older, and that whole kind of
thing. Or at least you have like a reference point for it.
Right.
And then she went on to go through ages 6 through 10. Including kids in financial decision making, which you talked about your mother, including you guys in financial decision making.
We didn't get to make any decisions. We just knew what decisions were being made.
That's funny.
There's a very clear distinction.
Sure. Well, so at least having the kids at the table while decisions are being made and talking through it. Giving kids small amounts of money, allowing them to choose how they spend it. So now notice from 3 to 5, we've gone from like jar money to like at 6 through 10, it's talking about allowing them to spend it how they want it, rather than like delayed gratification. It's like, oh, if you want that pack of candy, go ahead and buy it.
But understanding the consequences of those actions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then also you can talk out loud as you walk through the grocery store or other places why you're spending money a certain way. So I imagine like if you're in the grocery store and you're like, looking at this cereal versus that cereal, and one cereal is like the name brand and the other is like $1 less, but it's the same thing, but it's this, with the same kind of, raisin brand, and then like brand raisins.
Okay.
You get the brand raisins because it's cheaper, but it tastes the same as raisin brand.
I beg to differ, but I'm with you.
Yeah, it might be a slight difference, but it's more or less the same. So that's an interesting way that you could do it. Did you have like a chore system growing up?
So didn't get an allowance.
Okay.
So that I don't know how much of a Everybody Hates Chris watcher you are. That scene when his dad's like, "I allow you to live here." That was my life. So
Right.
But so we did get additional pay, I guess is the way to say it, for doing things outside, above and beyond
Oh, wow.
what our normal chores were. So
when
like,
you excelled.
right. So for example, washing cars.
Okay.
That wasn't something that was inside of our normal "I allow you to live here" kind of scenario. So it was like, I'll pay you a couple of dollars to wash my car.
Right.
Or something something along those lines,
Okay.
like maybe cutting the grass or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
But those kind of things were where I was able to pick up additional dollars around the house when I was like 11, 12, whatever.
Okay. Excellent. And then she went on to go cover ages 11 through 13. So that was shifting away from short-term goals, which is like buying candy at the store,
Right.
And switching to long-term goals for ages 11 through 13, which is big because at 11 to 13, like you have the full presence of mind to make decisions about this or that. And you can actually start saying, all right, I'm going to plan to buy that video game, because I remember doing that. Like I
Right.
definitely saved money and rationed things such that I could buy new video games or new whatever it was. So that's a big deal.
See, I don't think people are giving kids enough credit for their ability to process.
Absolutely.
And what I mean is, you have kids who are in other countries right now learning algebra at 8 and 9 and 10 years old, right? So if an 8, 9, 10-year-old can learn something like algebra that I learned in, I don't know, 8th or 9th grade or whatever.
I never learned algebra. I'm playing.
Oh, I was about to
I
say
struggled mightily with
California
math.
school system.
I
is
struggled
just-
mightily with math. I know how to do algebra, but it was not my friend. Now geometry, I was amazing at.
See, I figured because algebra comes first, that's probably where I'd make my argument. But either way, algebra, geometry, whatever. You got kids who are literally 10 years old doing algebra and geometry in other countries.
Right.
And in this country.
Right.
So then they definitely at 11, 12, 13 years old can grasp the concept of budgeting,
Absolutely.
managing their money, even investing.
Absolutely.
But I think probably the most foundational thing parents can teach their kids, regardless of what age they are, is the concept of compound interest.
Okay.
Like that is like a phenomenon, essentially. Like that's like one of the 8th, 9th, 10th wonders of the world almost that I think gets overlooked a lot.
Right.
But as soon as you really grasp the concept of compound interest, it really changes your perspective of what money is and how you can use it and harness its powers.
And briefly, sir, for the people, what is compound interest?
Compound interest is basically your money's ability to make money on top of itself. So if I have $100 that I put away and you're going to pay me interest of, let's say, 10%, that means on that $100, I'm making $10 this year.
Right.
But then next year, I'm not making the same $10 on top of my $100 because I have $110 at the end of that year.
Right.
So I'm making an additional 10% on top of that $110 and so on and so on and so on.
Right.
So for as long as I'm able to leave that money sitting there,
Right.
that snowball is continuing to roll downhill and build upon itself and over and over and over. And then don't get me started on if you're contributing money to that
Right.
while it's continuing
While it's rolling.
to grow on top of itself. That is just like the most beautiful thing in the world to me.
It's like a beautiful woman.
But
Compound interest is like a beautiful woman.
it is though.
It has curves and it always goes up.
Dude, it is though. It's like the most beautiful woman in the world.
Oh my God.
But if you can grasp that or if you can instill that concept in your kids, you know, as early as 7, 8, 10 years old,
Right.
they are leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else who's going to come into this information at 30
And get them excited about it.
and get them excited. Right. Make them not fearful of it. So I think another thing is to have your kids teach you about money.
Okay, in
So
what way?
have them go find the information and then come teach you about what it is, like compound interest, for example.
Right.
Have those kids
Oh, sure.
explain to you what
Absolutely.
compound interest is and what you could be using to earn interest and
Absolutely.
figure out at this rate, at 5% interest, how much money could I have 5 years from now if I allowed it to compound on top of itself and so on and so on. Let
Absolutely.
them teach you these things and then you really know that they have a grasp of.
And then compound interest was actually the thing that the story mentioned that ages 11 and through 13 can get into. And then
Nah, that's
also
too late. That's too late.
It's too late in Malcolm's household. But as you mentioned, showing kids how to calculate compound interest is a big deal, and then having them set long-term goals to purchase something more expensive.
Yeah.
So like something that's a little bit out of reach, at least initially. And then ages 14 to 18, now we're approaching like full-blown adulthood, and mental capacity is at what it's necessary to deal with money. Considering the cost of college, which is a big deal. Begin pricing out the full cost of college and different post-high school career paths.
Yes.
And then an introduction to credit cards and the idea of credit and what it means to be responsible with credit.
Yeah, so not even just credit cards, just credit in general. Like the idea that, if you want to go start a business, for example,
Right.
using other people's money versus your own money, and what
Right.
that does for your ability to grow that business faster, or,
Right.
those kind of things. Or the idea of how important it is to have good credit because you say you might want to be an entrepreneur at some point, right? And to get credit to start that business, you're going to need to have managed your money well and paid
Right.
people back on time and all that kind of stuff leading up. Those kind of things are important to learn
Absolutely.
as early as high school.
Absolutely. Very good. We want to remind people that you're listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. You can always find us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Simply search Manage Your Damn Money. You can also find links on our website at manageyourdamnmoney.com. We're going to take a really quick music break, but when we come back, we're going to list off just a few resources that we found for parents, and if you're a parent or if you're an educator who works with kids, how you can introduce them to finances. And also, we have a really good episode of many episodes ago, an interview with Adam Carroll, who has a really interesting take on how to introduce kids to finances. He tells a story about him and his kids playing Monopoly. We'll talk about a little bit about that on the other side of this break. We're going to listen to another music track by Mr. Beats by Beeman. You can listen to his music on Instagram at Beats by Beeman. You're listening Manage Your Damn Money. We will be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Willie Beeman has done it again.
We are back. We are back here on Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, talking about kids and money, what we wish we knew as kids about money that we maybe know now, or maybe we don't know it still. We've kind of gone through some of the things that we've seen in our own lives, and then also some suggestions from that Forbes story about what people can do if they have kids. But a real quick list for folks, if they're interested in learning more about where they can go to, get themselves acclimated to information that's quote unquote appropriate for kids. Mm-hmm. If you ask me, you can give a kid a magazine about money and be like, figure it out and tell me something. And then slowly, or no,
it depends on the kid.
Okay.
Personally, I don't think that would have done anything.
Okay, no.
Like I as a person, the way I learn, I need something practical to relate that to.
Okay.
So giving me something that's relative to what you're trying to get me to learn makes it so much easier for me. So as a kid, just giving me a magazine of old people talking about stuff that has nothing to do with me, and I'm never going to have a reason to know that because I'm 12.
Right.
That's a little challenging for me, but some kids might be smarter than me and be able to pick that up, that way a lot easier.
That's my fault, because I was reading Money Magazine at 15, but I don't think that's normal behavior. So I guess that's the issue right there. So pardon me for saying that. But one of the first things that we pulled is an organization called the National Financial Educators Council. Mm-hmm. It's an organization which provides curriculum designed to motivate participants to take positive action lesson plans, and use practical hands-on learning to let students reap the benefits of forming positive money habits at a young age. This is one of the first organizations that I became aware of that actually focuses on like financial literacy and providing materials for people. Then you had one, Malcolm. What is it, the National Academy of Finances?
Yeah, so the National Academy of Finance basically, in certain high schools around the country, creates a curriculum geared toward learning about finance, accounting, economics, all those different principles that they build into the 4-year education of high school students.
Right.
So, like, for example, when I was in high school, I studied technology. So we had a whole bunch of different classes that led up to a foundation on technology. Same thing with now business classes in high school, where they learn a lot of the concepts that they'll need in college. And then also the junior achievement folks have their finance parks that they build around the country, where kids as early as middle school go to their locations, practice, balancing a checkbook, like you said, even though I don't know who needs to do that these days. Balancing a checkbook, using credit cards. They actually learn how to budget, for the month, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, excellent. Another one that we have, themint.org. It's a site that provides tools to help parents as well as educators teach children to manage money wisely and develop good financial habits. And then another one is another organization which is based out of New York City called worldofmoney.org. It's a New York-based 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to empower the youth with immersive classroom and mobile education experiences in personal finance capacity or capability, teaching kids about money. Here's an interesting question that I literally just wrote down. Why are personal finances and money not built into education, our education system at all? Because it is literally the one thing that we all deal with once we become adults on a day-to-day basis, yet it's nowhere to be found in education as a primary thing. Like, history is more important, according to the education system, than dealing with money. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not 100% sure. This is my theory. This is conjecture on my side. But I really just feel like the American education system is not built to teach you how to be wealthy. It's built to teach you how to be a good employee. The American education system teaches you how to.
Are you allowed to say that publicly?
It's our show. I could say,
Okay, continue. What thought?
But I personally feel like the American education system is built to teach you how to learn everything you need to know, be a good soldier, get good grades so that you can get a good job, work for another corporation building their dream for 40 years, and then get to retire and do all the things you would have wanted to do all along the way, but you neglected doing because you were so focused on this good job that you were told, go to college, go to the best college in the world, get the best degree you can get, and all that kind of stuff. That's the way the American education system creates our relationship with school. Instead of teaching you how to be an entrepreneur, or teaching you how to build a business, or teaching you how to manage your money in such a way that you can live below your means and not have to live check to check and that sort of. Those aren't concepts that anybody teaches you in school.
Malcolm, you're gonna get us shut down saying things like that.
It's fine. The FCC can come find me at Malcolm on Money, and
they're gonna shut us down.
Now I'm gonna have a DM from the FCC too,
like Malcolm, you up here telling too many truths about what's going on. Stop it.
I mean, just think about it though. Like, the major corporations are built upon our willingness to go to school, stay in your lane, get good grades so you can get a good job, so you can buy a good house and have a good, all those. That's basically the way the system works. But nobody along the way teaches you how to get out of that any sooner than 67 or whatever full retirement age, is for certain folks.
Absolutely. What would education and money in the education system look like? I know it's kind of a hard question.
It is and it isn't. So I actually, I don't know if I ever told you this or not, but I actually helped develop curriculum for schools, like to teach kids earlier on about money.
I learn something new about Malcolm every week.
So one of the organizations we were talking about, I'm actually on associated with them
Okay.
and help them figure out the curriculum for the high school
Okay.
students. So it is not as hard as people make it sound.
Uh-huh.
I have learned in my few years of working with them, kids actually want this information.
Wow.
They just don't have anybody to ask who's willing to talk to them about it.
Okay.
And then I think about it when I was in high school too. I was interested in knowing more. You know, it's just like, where do you go?
Right.
And then I talk to older people who say, when I was your age, I wish I knew X, Y. So,
Right.
you know, it does have to become kind of a normal thing that is given to you as part of your curriculum.
Right.
But then also you have to be willing to seek it out and not say,
Right.
oh, well, I don't know anything about that. Nobody ever told me. Well, you know, if you're old enough to go to the library and check out a book,
Yeah.
you have no excuse to not know anything you don't already want to know.
Right.
So, you know, but to answer your question though, I think adding one class each semester or each year to your curriculum
Right.
is where it starts.
Absolutely.
So just basic financial principles, concepts, you know,
Right.
along the lines of what is an LLC versus a corporation,
Right.
or what is a stock versus a bond, just
Right.
simple stuff like that. If you learn it at 15, 16,
Right.
you're not afraid of it. And so build it into the schools and, you know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You hear that, America? Malcolm has spoken.
the children are the future.
Indeed.
Teach them
indeed.
well and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that was a really good show. I'm sure it'll be even better once we have kids that we can actually teach money to.
I'm telling you, man, my niece has 6 months
And you gonna get her?
and it's on.
Mommy, I don't like when Uncle Malcolm comes over. Of course, that's actually pretty much a wrap for this show of Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. If you enjoyed this, we encourage you to do two things specifically on the Apple Podcast platform. Search Manage Your Damn Money and then subscribe, and also leave us a review of what you think about the podcast. That's the kind of thing that we need to kind of raise and push the bar for our statistics on the podcast specifically. And if you have ideas, what can people do, Malcolm?
If you have ideas for shows you'd like to see us do, topics you'd like to see us cover here on the show, you can send those ideas into info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. Also, we'll take your questions, comments, kudos, all that good stuff. But you can save the criticisms because I'm going to report you as spam as always.
So, of course, we want to remind you that you've been listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Catch us on manageyourdamnmoney.com if you need us, or on social media at MYDM1 and
@Malcolm on Money.
And again, a reminder, subscribe, leave us a comment under the iTunes platform, podcast platform. It's kind of weird to do it. You have to like search, find the podcast, and then it's like, it comes up, and then it has like a tab for reviews.
That's how you know somebody means it, when they go through the trouble of finding where to.
I was struggling to find my millennial self. I guess I'm not that young anymore when I'm starting to struggle with technology and whatnot. But anyway, thanks for listening. Thank you for watching. Any other thoughts?
That's all I got.
That's all we got. All right. Until next time, be good with your money, and we'll see you later.
Peace.
Peace.